The House Appropriations Subcommittee on General Government will come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll for today's attendance?
Chair Kuhn.
Here.
Representatives Van Workum.
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
Maddock.
Here.
Snyder.
Here.
All members are present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Rep. Maddock moves to approve the minutes of the June 5th, 2025 meeting. There being no objections, the minutes are approved. Today we have a presentation by CSG, who are the Independent Verification and Validation Monitoring and Reporting group for the Unemployment Insurance System Replacement Project. So I'm not sure how we connect here. Are they online? Are they connected?
Not sure. They're together.
Morning, can you hear us?
Oh, there we. Yes, we can hear it.
Okay, can you hear us?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. And today we have Becky Rosier and Robin Sosen from CSG. And I guess the schedule here is to give you a few minutes to explain what your work involved with IV&V here with the UIA in Michigan.
Perfect. Are we ready to start?
Yes, ma'am. Go whenever you're comfortable.
Excellent. Good morning, Representative Kuhn and committee members. My name is Robin Sosen, and I'm the IV&V project manager and have been on the engagement for this project since July of 2023. I have 20 years of PM and QA experience and have supported numerous IV&V engagements with CSG over the past 8 years. I'd like to introduce to you now Becky Rosier, who is our client executive.
Good morning. I am Becky Rosier, and I am the client executive for the MyUI project. I've been providing oversight on that project since November of 2024. I have about 25 years of experience in unemployment insurance and have worked on UI modernization efforts in about 9 states across the country. So I'll give you a little bit of overview of the company and kind of the work we do for IV&V and why that's important for projects to have IV&V. And then Robin will give you a little bit more background on the specific work that we've been doing for the MyUI project. CSG Government Solutions is a government operations consulting firm that helps state agencies manage complex projects to modernize their information technology and organizational processes of large government projects. Since 1997, CSG has provided management and IT consulting services for several hundred public sector projects in almost every state in the nation. We have been the IV&V vendor on about 70 projects nationwide, and our work includes programs such as Medicaid, unemployment compensation, child support enforcement, child welfare, and several other areas. IV&V services bring value to government IT projects by providing an independent, unbiased perspective on those projects and focus on identifying potential risk that can impede project progress if not mitigated. Verification ensures that the project meets its requirements and helps ensure the system is built correctly, where validation ensures the system meets the user's needs and is built right. IV&V firms generally also bring expertise with national experience, much broader than the state resources may have with large-scale system implementations. CSG's approach to independent verification and validation is proactive and forward-looking. We assess the project's current status and look down the road for looming issues and potential risks. We focus on whether the system's development is meeting the project objectives, whether good processes and methods are being used consistently, and if the project is moving forward as planned. We always remain independent and unbiased in our assessments. I'm going to turn it over to Robin to talk a little bit more specifically about the IV&V work we're doing for Michigan.
Perfect. Thank you, Becky. The IVMV monthly reports submitted to UIA and DTMB leadership provide an unbiased assessment of project activities, concerns, risks and issues, and progress towards milestones. The IVMV team collects information and observations from several different sources through project review of project documentation, attendance of project working sessions and meetings, and regular interviews of DTMB, UIA, and Deloitte resources. We use this information to identify and assess risks to the project. As risks are identified, the IVMV team first writes an observation and confirms that with DTMB and UIA project leadership to agree that our factual statements are accurate. We then develop a formal description of the risk, why it's important to the project, the potential impact to the project, and mitigation or action steps that can be taken to mitigate that risk. These are then published in the monthly IVMV reports that is currently submitted to DTMB and UIA. That concludes our introduction. And as you start asking our questions, we received questions last week and some questions today. So if you see Beck and I sort of looking at our screens and looking at our documents and our notes, that's why we're going through that, because we have, of course, reviewed them and looked through our monthly reports to provide your responses today.
Well,
Before we start with regular questions and answers, are there any questions about the IVMV processes themselves and how they're utilized on the project?
I guess not. Thank you, though. All right, committee.
Snyder had a question.
Okay, Rep. Snyder.
We're having a little bit of difficulty hearing you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I think so.
Thank you. Good morning, and appreciate your testimony this morning, or for being here. Last week, when the department and Deloitte were both in here to talk about the project, when asked about your reports, Deloitte told the chair that at the beginning of the project that they didn't always receive your reports in a timely manner or at all. Can you say exactly why that is?
Well, we submit our reports to DTMB and UIA leadership, and it is up to them to share those reports with Deloitte. But to the best of our knowledge, Deloitte has been receiving our reports since May of last year of 2024.
And then they also said that it wasn't until recently that they were able to offer comment on your reports to you and part of your process, I guess. Is that a normal part of your process and your operating procedures?
So I would say from an IVMV perspective, nationwide, vendors generally aren't provided an opportunity to comment on draft reports or make changes to those reports because it kind of conflicts with the independent nature of IVMV. However, Deloitte does participate in the process by being involved in interviews, and they certainly can provide information once they receive the report if they believe something is factually incorrect. Robin, I think you could speak to whether we've gotten any of that feedback in the months that they've been receiving our report.
No, we have not received any feedback from DTMB, UIA, or Deloitte over the last year that anything in our reports were factually incorrect.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Rep. Maddock.
How much money is the state of Michigan paying you this year or last year?
For our contract, our
Yes.
contract is about $1 million a year.
And what role have you played with our new unemployment system that's being developed with Deloitte?
I didn't quite hear the question. I'm sorry.
What role do you play with our new unemployment system that's being developed by Deloitte?
What role do we play, Robin? What role does your team play with the project?
Oh, as the IVNV vendor? Is that what you're asking? I'm sorry, I was having difficulty hearing you.
That is the question. What role do you play with our new unemployment system being developed by Deloitte?
Okay. Our role is, as I explained earlier, as the IVNV vendor to help the project determine risk on the project. The project activities, any concerns to the project, risks or issues, and we bring those to leadership.
Would that risk concern include cost overruns?
We have not raised concerns about cost overruns on the project.
Isn't that part of your job?
I'm sorry.
Isn't that part of your job in your role?
I'm sorry, Becky, I'm having a hard time hearing.
Mr. Chair. No. Do you, in your role, if there has been cost overruns, you're a third-party kind of watchdog on this, correct?
Correct.
So if there were cost overruns, you'd know that and would report them, correct?
Correct.
So there has been cost overruns, but no report?
We've talked about the budget in several of our reports over the last year.
And
The
red
overrun.
flagged these overruns?
We have not red flagged those overruns.
Why not?
The overruns currently now were based on the replanning efforts.
So they've adjusted timelines, so then therefore it doesn't look like it's an overrun?
They've adjusted timelines for the project, and the overrun will be, our understanding of the overrun of this project will be to support keeping their current vendor on due to the overrun of the project currently.
As a third party vendor, I would expect equal weight on vendor and buyer as far as responsibilities. But is there it sounds like there's maybe an attempt to protect both at the expense or cost of public embarrassment?
I'm not sure we understand that question.
Well, no, wait. I mean, yeah. You're a third-party watchdog between a contract between a vendor and a buyer, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that third-party watchdog, so you're trying to keep everything honest and above board, correct?
Correct.
So if there are cost overruns and you don't red flag them based on a new timeline, it seems to me that you're providing a service of protection then for both the vendor and the buyer.
I don't think I would characterize it that way. I would characterize it more that we are evaluating the budget that's in the contract. And so when they've modified that contract to include a greater budget, then that becomes the new budget baseline that you are.
But isn't that in itself some sort of red flag?
I don't know that I would call it a red flag. I mean, you often
Well,
see
obviously
this
you
in
didn't.
modernizations.
So it's
I mean,
not, and I don't mean to be argumentative here. I'm just trying to ascertain what it is your role. If you can't be an honest broker, then why are you there?
I wouldn't say we're not being honest. I would say that when we evaluated and reported in previous reports on the budget, they were observations that were in there. And as we move forward and they replan, those observations change as replanning occurs. That's how projects work, big projects. As you replan or rebaseline or modify contracts for any of your vendors, you then are evaluating the situation at that point in time. So I wouldn't say that is dishonest.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Rep. Maddock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've paid you $1 million, and what has our return on this quote-unquote investment been, given the fact that this new system is a complete catastrophe?
I would say that we have raised those risks from day one. We don't have authority to have the state or the vendor implement any recommendations that we've put forth. So I believe that we have raised the risks that are out there and brought them forth to leadership to be able to understand what they are.
Seems like a waste of money to me, hiring you guys for $1 million a year, and look where we are.
Thank you, Rep. Maddock. Rep. Van Workum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So earlier you mentioned that you provide the reports to DTMB as well as UIA, correct? And they then pass it on to Deloitte, is that correct?
That is our understanding, correct?
Okay. So, but yet you're kind of a third party between the purchaser and the vendor, so you still are doing contact with Deloitte. Is that correct?
What do you mean contact? We talk to Deloitte in meetings, we interview Deloitte staff,
Okay.
we have
But-
interactions with Deloitte.
But you're still giving those reports then to DTMB and UIA and relying on them to give your reports to Deloitte?
Yes, because that was our requirement in the beginning of our contract, that the reports would go to DTMB and UIA. There was
So-
no, go ahead, Becky.
I was going to say, I mean, DTMB and UIA are our clients, right? That's who we're providing the report to. Our report's not for Deloitte. It's for DTMB and UIA to utilize to manage their risk on the project.
Okay. So the more we kind of dig into this of the role of DTMB and then the role of UIA and the conversations that they have and how frequent those conversations are. And, we've heard pros and cons of kind of the centralized system we have here in Michigan with DTMB. I guess how much of your interaction is it done with the DTMB side compared to the UIA side?
I would think we're equal. I mean, we attend meetings that DTMB and UIA are all in. I wouldn't say we spend more time with DTMB or UIA. It really is throughout. We interview DTMB resources, UIA resources. We attend meeting that both of those business areas are in.
So reviewing, I guess, the budget and how it kind of works here on the legislative side, we do a budget. Each department kind of has an IT budget. So UIA has a budget, but then it's a transfer then to DTMB. With you guys' independent review, do you see any savings that could be occurred when you're dealing, I guess, with two agencies that are working on the same project?
I would think, we see across the nation both models where they have a separate IT agency or they have it within their agencies. And I think you need both of those people. You've got to have technical people involved in the project as well as your business folks. So when you have a kind of centralized IT agency, they've got to be included in this project, right? You can't, like UIA couldn't run the project without DTMB technical resources being involved and have a successful project.
So not only do we have two departments working on the IT, we're also doing a third-party contract with it. And they are the ones, I guess, under this contract that are actually putting the code and putting the modules together to create it. So again, looking at that cost savings, you now have two departments, two IT budgets, and yet it's an independent third-party vendor that is creating it. Do you see any potential for cost savings on that, of how the relationship of who is actually putting these pieces together, how much DTMB is getting paid, how much UIA is getting paid, and then the third party with Deloitte, and then, as you said, $1 million to you guys as well?
We haven't looked at the budget in those terms of, not including DTMB. So I can't really comment on that. Again, though, you need those individuals to be involved, even though your DTMB staff might not be building the new system. They are the ones that are going to have knowledge about the old system for things such as data conversion and how functioning needs to work or processes are needed. So you need that technical resource involved, whether they have the right number of technical resources and pricing, and that's not for us to really say.
Okay, who would we consult to find out where those savings could, if you're a third-party person, you have intimate knowledge of this process and overview and oversight, how would we get a recommendation on how many DTMB technical people it's necessary, especially when you're working with a large firm like Deloitte that does this as their profession?
That generally wouldn't be a role IVNV would play on the project. So generally, people would use a project management firm to do that. If they had a PMO, they might be doing that evaluation. That would generally not be IVNV coming up with cost savings.
So we would need yet another independent person to look at that to see what kind of savings and who's doing what on what project and whether that's necessary or not?
I would say that would be the best course, is to have someone do a study of that, of the cost benefit of each group.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple questions. Now, starting in 2023, you would send the IV&V reports only to Leo and DTMB, is that correct?
DTMB and UAA, yes.
UIA, I'm sorry. And why did that change in the middle of last year?
I don't know. All of it, they UIA and DTMB came to us and asked us if it was okay if they shared our report, and I said, well, of course, they belong to you. You can share them anytime you like. So I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, but even starting from day one, you could have shared your reports with Deloitte and, for that matter, with legislative committees, correct?
Yeah, we could have. Yes, we
Could
weren't
have,
asked to.
If DTMB or UI had requested that, you would have been happy to do that, correct?
Absolutely. Of course.
Was there any improvement after that you observed once they had your reports were being forwarded to Deloitte as well as DTMB and Leo? Did that improve communication?
Communications across the project has improved over time. Beginning, in the fall of last year, as the replanning efforts to get to where the project is today, communication has improved with leadership. The governance structure has changed recently, and communication has gotten better. I don't know if the communication has gotten better based on our reports or not. I couldn't tell you that.
Now, you produce monthly, bi-monthly, and biennial IV&V reports. What's the reason for having monthly and bi-monthly reports?
We no longer do the bi-monthly reports.
Well, I
That was
get that,
removed.
but for a period of time in 2023 and 2024, you did have bi-monthly reports. What was your reason for doing that?
That was a requirement of our contract.
Okay, so that's the only reason you did it? It's in your contract that you do a bi-monthly report and your contract was changed?
Yes, the bi-monthly report's no longer included.
One of the issues in this project was Deloitte's use of a new platform from Microsoft. What issues arose from the use of that new platform?
And so, as Deloitte stated last week in their testimony, is that they did use UFAX on that new platform, and it didn't perform as expected. And so that's all I could probably say about that.
Okay, and UFAX is Deloitte's proprietary platform for
Correct.
UIA?
Correct.
It's their software, yeah, their
Yes.
framework.
Okay, and have they continued to use this new Microsoft platform?
Yes.
Would you be advised of DTMB's quality reports on the project?
Have we seen their quality reports? No.
Now, you've done this in a lot of states. Do some states request that the IV&V reports go to legislative committees?
Yes, we do have some states where they request it to go to legislative committees or other entities, and we provide it to whoever they've requested us to provide it to.
Have you noticed any problems arising from sending IV&V reports to legislative committees?
I'm not aware of any. I mean, it's transparency, right, on the project to be able to have those IV&V reports going to the legislators who may be overseeing that budget or modernization or other ways that it's being looked at. So we've not seen problems arise from that.
Have you seen any issues in this project related to the quality management plan?
Yes, we've had an open observation around the quality management plan that it wasn't robust enough. It didn't share enough information about how Deloitte controlled internal quality of their processes and procedures. And just of late, the IV&V team has received the internal Deloitte quality checklist of what they use to double check their deliverables before they're delivered to the state. And the state project program manager is working with Deloitte leadership to obtain their internal audit reports of their internal quality audit reports that they do. And we'll be able to then more closely see how Deloitte monitors their internal quality, which will help reduce risk moving forward for quality when we clearly understand how they're applying their internal processes to ensure quality.
Now, your IV&V reports are signed off by Britton Mayland at UIA and John Walker at DTMB. Who are these people, as far as you know, and what are their roles and their involvement in the project?
Yeah, John Walker is the business or relationship manager, and he manages the DTMB technical team. And Britt Mayland is the agency services product owner for the project, and he manages the agency services team on the project. And they are the ones that sign our reports and have since we've started.
What triggers an issue as an observation on your IV&V reports?
There's a lot of analysis that goes into determining whether it's just a comment in our report that something's coming up, we're looking at something more closely. If we determine that things are moving in a direction that could cause a risk to become an observation to become a risk, then it becomes a formal observation that says what the problem is, why it's important to look at this problem, and a mitigation strategy that could be followed to help mitigate that or ensure that that risk doesn't occur on the project.
And what kind of risk are you looking at? Apparently, it's not budgetary risk. What kind of risk is it that you're talking about when you say high risk or medium or low risk in your reports?
So high risks are observations that probably started out as either medium or low. And over time, if we're witnessing that they aren't getting mitigated or something might be getting worse and getting closer to it being realized, then it goes to red. So it's just on the severity, how we categorize what the impact is currently, what it could be, and in those natures as well.
So what kind of risk is it? It's not a budgetary risk. Is it a time delay risk? Or what kind of risk are you identifying there?
So right now we have risks open around the schedule, around conversion, the big rocks. We try to make the observations about things that are big, big risks to the project, and the schedule is one of them, and ensuring that all the tasks on the project are identified. And coming out of the replanning effort, a new schedule was delivered by Deloitte to the state, and the state and Deloitte have been working over the last probably the last 4 or 5 weeks to fine tune that to ensure there are no gaps. All the business areas have had opportunities to review the schedule and to provide their input to ensure nothing is missing. And those meetings now are starting to finalize, and they are planning, when I say they, DTMB, UIA, and Deloitte is planning to have that all wrapped up by the end of next week.
Okay, so when you're talking about risk, you're talking about delay in the project, basically?
Things that could delay the project, absolutely.
But you're not specifically looking at any budgetary impact when you consider risk.
We look at the budget, and based on the replanning efforts, yes, there was a budgetary increase to the budget, and we did not open a risk about that.
Okay, thank you. Rep. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You'd mentioned that you had bi-monthly reports. It was part of a contract, but then they were stopped. Was that also part of the contract?
So I think there was a little bit of misunderstanding of what was actually required by UIA at the time the contract was initially executed. They intended to receive biweekly information, which we do provide a biweekly meeting to them to go through that information, and not bi-monthly. So it was stated improperly in the RFP, which is why upon discussion with them in DTMB, we discontinued those reports.
Oh, all right. And then earlier, I think, Robin, you said claim that DTMB, Deloitte, and UIA are claiming to have this all done by next week. Given their history of work with them, do you think that that'll come to fruition?
Right now, they are managing all work to that schedule.
Okay. And my last question, there's repeatedly communication issues, and I take that to mean here in Michigan, or maybe back from the state or whoever. Could our remote work policies that have these people working from home be a part of that?
I can't answer that question, is whether remote causes a lack of communication or not. Everybody's been working this hybrid for nearly, several years. I do know that the workers do come into the office several days a week and then work from home on the other days of the week.
You work with other states, correct?
Yes.
and others that may not have as robust remote work policies? Do you have better communications with them?
I would say in most of the states that we're working in, they're still working on a hybrid schedule. So there's a few that are fully back in the office, but most states are still on a hybrid schedule. And I think communication in general can be problematic, whether it's remote or in person. It just depends on a lot of different factors.
Thank you, Mr.
Rep. Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You said in your opening statement that you serve as the independent verification vendor for approximately 70 of these projects. Is that correct?
That's correct. Since we've been in business, about 70 projects. Yeah, we don't have 70 current projects,
Okay.
but 70 projects overall.
And you serve in multiple states, work in multiple states, and you mentioned the different models that states use for IT, whether that be an agency-driven model or one department serving all these agencies as the IT lead. In your experience, does one of those models work better than the other?
I think they both have their pros and cons. So I wouldn't say one is better than the other. I do think they both have their pros and cons.
And then secondly, I just want to confirm and follow up when I believe it was Rep. Van Workum's question about receiving of these reports, that you said after 2024, when these reports were then being shared with the vendor, with Deloitte, that you saw an improvement in the evaluation of the project. Is that accurate? That's what I thought I heard.
I saw that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's what I thought I heard, and I just want to make sure that that's correct.
Yeah, I said that communication had gotten better later on, but I can't say that it's directly in the result of the fact that Deloitte had then started to receive our reports.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Snyder. Rep. Maddock.
So like almost every day we have committee hearings like this, and we learn a lot of bad things, unfortunately, and I think this is one of them. I think one of the possible solutions to avoid this catastrophe that we're looking at is to make this committee a part of the communications from this day forward. So I'd like you to make this committee part of your communications with Deloitte from this moment forward. All communications. Thank you. Please acknowledge my request. Actually, please acknowledge what I'm ordering you to do.
Yes,
So I think we can provide our report to you. I don't know that every email communication, although we
No,
don't have a
no,
lot of email
that's-
communication
that's-
back and forth with Deloitte anyway, but certainly the reports can be provided
The
without any
reports
problem.
and the communication. I think it's more important that we have an opportunity to see the communications, because I think this is a communication breakdown. And we are going to be a part of that communication process from now on. That's our job.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for being here today and answering our questions. Are there any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, we will, there being no further business, the meeting's adjourned.